Hi, and congratulations on passing the halfway point in the course and coming into week 5. This week we are going to be interpreting historiography. We'll have 2 assignments and a discussion post, and we'll be focusing on Ruth a little more deeply and in different ways this week. So we have 3 goals. First, to demonstrate an understanding of the biblical or of the basic literary features of the historical books. Second, to observe key literary features of historiography in the book of Ruth. And then finally, to explain how literary features contribute to the meaning of the book of Ruth. So we're looking at different methodologies this week, and we'll be doing a character study and a word study this week as well. So in 5.1, it is an Old Testament character study of one of the main characters in the book of Ruth, and you get to choose who you want to dive more deeply into. You're to write a 3-page character study of one of the characters in Ruth. Evaluate the author's rendering of them in the text and answer the following several questions. First, how does this character contribute to the overarching plot of the narrative? And I think that's one of the first things, and one of the most important, is to evaluate the plot line of Ruth and how whatever character you choose contributes to the flow of that plot. 2, are they static or dynamic characters? Now, if you're going to do a 3-page analysis, picking a dynamic character is going to be important. 3, what is their interaction like with other characters in the narrative, including God? So you're looking at how does this character help with the flow of the plot? And then specifically through dialogue, through the narrator, and through other mechanisms, how does this character play an integral role in interacting with other characters? And you're going to want to look at dialogue, narration, description. How do these work together? Number 4, how is the author's presentation of them supposed to impact the reader? What is the thrust of the application of this text for the Old Testament and New Testament believer? So on the first 3, you're really looking at creative narrative. In other words, we could be talking about the Bible, we could be talking about any book, and how does a character play into the overall narrative? In 4 now, we want to look and say, okay, this is not just any book or any play. This is, in fact, a biblical book inspired by God. And why did God inspire the writer to include this character? And what does that mean to our understanding of the Old Testament or the New Testament? Ruth is a book that really, across the board, every character plays into our understanding, up until even Ruth and Boaz and their descendants leading to Christ. Note, you will need to cite sources for this paper. This is not just your opinion, and it is not just an analysis of the book, but it is a research project to where you are to analyze the book, but per page. So if this is 3 pages, per page, you are to cite 2 sources at a minimum that are academic sources. So include at least 2 citations of reputable and recent academic resources per page. And that means published books, published commentaries, or journal articles. Obviously, class readings are excellent sources for this paper, but other reputable sources may and should be utilized as well. Please notice that unpublished online resources are not considered academically credible. So if you go to just mybiblethinc.com or here Wikipedia, Creation Museum, other just non-academic websites are not academic sources. So be sure that you're using journal articles that you can find online, commentaries that you can find online, or published books. Bible citations are necessary for this paper, but they do not count towards your 2 citations per page requirement. As always with papers, this one is due next Monday at midnight. Now, assignment 5.2 is an interpretive blog. So in a 500-word blog, so much shorter, defend a position on diachronic versus synchronic methods for interpreting narrative text. Now, your Chisholm reading is going to help you with this tremendously, outlining what is a diachronic and what is a synchronic method. But in the paper or in the blog, I want you to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of each position from your own faith perspective. So that means you need to define diachronic, define synchronic, and then determine which one you think best fits your personal faith perspective, and that should be supported with both biblical and academic sources. What is at stake? In other words, if you say diachronic is for me, how does synchronic negatively impact you? How do you respond as a believer to the critical challenge in certain texts? And then finally, you need to, at least in a paragraph, discuss and weigh and critique Chisholm's proposed third way methodology. All right, so then for our discussion post, it's actually a word study, and Goel is off limits. You've already done that one. So using Logos, look up and examine the most frequently repeated words throughout the book of Ruth. You may do this most easily by using the passage guide and then interesting words function within Logos. Which words stand out to you? And study how these are used and how often. So I want you to identify the most frequent words that are used in the book of Ruth, and then do a brief word study on what these words mean and how they are used and why they are interesting in the book of Ruth. Then pick one and defend a position on how the repetition of this word contributes to the overall message of the book. So really 2 parts. What are the most frequently repeated words? Why are they interesting? And then a more in-depth word study on one of those Hebrew words. Last thoughts. I'm traveling this week, so it may take me a little while to respond to questions. I'm flying to Wichita, Kansas on Wednesday, and we'll be learning how to fly a new plane at Flight Safety. But feel free to email or call me if I'm in class or studying or flying. Then it may take me a little while to get back. Most of my classes are only 4 hours at a time, so I should have time between classes, and we'll definitely have time in the evening to respond. Have a great week. I look forward to your thoughts on the book of Ruth and how it plays into our overall theology. Have a great week.